Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the video. This is my video series where I talk about Classic World of Warcraft dungeons. We go over a bit of the history, the bosses, the loot, and then at the end of the video I talk about my ideas for a Classic Plus version of the dungeon. So today we're talking about Blackfathom Deeps, the Moon Goddess Temple. A quick history on the Blackfathom Deeps. It was once a great temple to the Moon Goddess Elune. After the Great Sundering, the temple was shattered and sunk beneath the Veiled Sea. The Naga and Satyr were drawn by its ancient powers to see the temple's secrets. Rumor has it that Akumai, pet of the primordial old gods, has moved into the ruins. Drawn by Akumai, the Twilight Hammer cult has come to be with the old god's evil presence. And then first boss up we have the turtle, Gamu Ra. Tormented by the Twilight Hammer, had his mind and body flayed, succumbing to the darkness. He is just a poor turtle, in the wrong place, the wrong time. The sea creature, Old Sericus, resides beneath the Moonshrine ruins. Couldn't find too much lore on this boss, but it's a sea creature. Sea creatures are cool, and why not throw one in there? The Naga, Lady Cerevis, one of the Naga commanders working with the Twilight Hammer, wanted for her magical protection and her powers. The Murloc, Galagast, drawn by the old gods, made his way into the temple slaying Twilight Hammer cultists. Impressed by his ferocity, the cult allowed him to stay. But I feel like it was more he was too strong to kick out and they let him stay. The human, Lorgus Jet. He's a high-ranking hammer and powerful spellcaster. Not much lore with this guy. He's just a dude in a cave, part of a cult. The Elemental, Baron Aquinas. This is a horde-only quest. He's summoned and he drops a water globe that's wanted by the troll Janu Sankria. The Orc, Twilight Lord Kelris. He's a powerful commander of the temple cultists, and he's harnessing the power of shadow. He's just kind of like a badass warlock, part of a cult, in a temple, doing his thing. And then we have the Hydra, Akumai, a feared servant of the old gods, worshipped by the Twilight Hammer cultists to gain favor with the gods. He is a pretty badass little Hydra, 3 heads, and a real fun fight both in Classic and in Season of Discovery. Now we have the loot. I'd like to thank Wowhead for providing all these details. So we'll quickly go over this and I'll duck down so you can see everything as usual. So we have the Naga battle gloves, the Moss Kinch, Tortoise armor, Strike of the Hydra, Leech pants, Rod of the Sleepwalker, Rigid shoulders, Glowing Thresher cape, Bite of Sericus, and Algae fists. So there was more loot in this dungeon, but this is kind of the notable loot from the bosses. I think a highlight here would probably be the staff, the 2 pairs of gloves, and I think the Strike of the Hydra looks pretty badass, but I'm sure everything in here is fairly useful to some degree. So my ideas for Classic Plus. I thought it'd be cool to have a corrupted Night Elf boss, an old worshipper of Elune. I think it would go well with the theme of the dungeon. And it would add some flair to have kind of like a night elf that kind of looks like Sylvanas. She's been corrupted by the Twilight Hammer, something along those lines. One of the remaining worshippers of Elune taken over and corrupted by the Twilight Hammer. And then we have a haunted sailors encounter. So near the beginning there could be souls of sailors who died off at sea, and the reward being a treasure map that starts a quest chain. Now I don't know how well thematically this would work. I'm kind of just tying the fact that it's a dungeon that's kind of washed out to sea a little bit, and haunted sailors just seems kind of badass. I always love pirate stuff. And then the scroll can go and take you on kind of like a fun little mini epic quest chain where you're going from place to place looking for buried treasure. So an egg in the waters near Sericus that once looted gives a thresher pet after 7 days, hatching in the bag, and only usable in water. I thought this would be cool. I'm trying to think of more ways that we can add like collections and different items in the game like that, so it gives people a reason to go to these different locations, regardless if they need to do the dungeon for the loot or quests. It just adds more options for people and gives people more of a reason to jump in there. And I thought it would be cool if it hatched after 7 days in your bag or in some kind of aquatic capacity. And I thought it'd be an interesting spin if it was a pet that you could only use in water, because I haven't really seen that before. part one of a long old god quest chain that continues throughout the entire game. So I thought it would be cool because Akumai is like this pet of the primordial old gods. If they added, something tying into the old gods. We fight Cthulhu at the end of Vanilla in the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj, so I thought it'd be cool to have kind of like this overarching old god story that takes place all across the world throughout the game. And again, it adds more of a reason to go to the dungeon and for people to go back to the dungeon. So a more streamlined layout. Have the layout easier to navigate, some bosses being optional like in Blackrock Depths. I think this would be pretty effective because this is a pretty long dungeon. There's a lot of bosses. They could easily connect a few of the hallways, make it a little more streamlined, not take away from doing the entire dungeon, but give you the option to do a few bosses so people don't feel like it's this big undertaking because they already have to travel to a pretty inconvenient spot in the world. So it just having a complex layout with a lot of bosses just adds another layer of kind of complexity and makes players maybe not want to do the dungeon. So a temple quest line that spans over many levels. Maybe you collect an item from Blackfathom Deeps, the Sunken Temple, the Temple of Archeron, Temple of Zid Malor, and then ending in the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj. So I thought this would be cool because in World of Warcraft there's all these temples across the world, and I thought it'd be really epic to visit these temples and kind of maybe in like an Indiana Jones-esque fashion, you're finding these artifacts and they all tie into a quest line. I think epic quest lines are really good for Classic WoW. It really adds this sense of adventure and scale to the world, and that you're taking part in this fantastic, adventure through things. And I think the temples would be a really good way to outline this, where you feel like you're going into these old ruins, you can learn the lore, you can get these cool items, and then eventually it takes you through the end of the game and you feel like you've been on this, huge journey throughout your entire venture. I think with Blackfathom Deeps, it's already a dungeon that not a lot of people want to run, and that's why they reworked it in Season of Discovery. But I think if you increase, reasons to go back to the dungeon, it's going to make people want to run the dungeon, right? If you have these quests, it gives higher levels a reason to go back. Maybe they run with their guildies. I don't think you necessarily have to completely change the dungeon to make it more desirable to run. I think a few of these tweaks and a few of these additions would make the dungeon a better experience, and it would make people want to run the dungeon. I think that's the one thing that I think about in Classic Plus is there's certain pieces of content that aren't necessarily very fun, in my opinion. I think Blackfathom Deeps is a good example of this, where it's a dungeon that historically it's hard to find groups, it's way out of the way. There's all these reasons that people don't really want to do the dungeon, but I think with these changes it would make people want to run the dungeon more, and it would give more meaning to some of these spaces. One thing I want to highlight in these videos is there's, as much as there is stuff we can add to the game, new zones, new this, new that, I think it's really important to look at the old content and see what they can do to rework it and make it more enjoyable. Because once you do the new zones and the new dungeons, you do them and you experience them, and it's like, okay, that's that. But the world is still the world. So I think adding little tweaks here and there, changing things, reworking things, it's going to make the entire experience feel fresh. And it works really well in the Classic Plus capacity, because then you feel like you're adventuring in this whole new world. While it's familiar, it has all these changes that suit the lore and are very comfortable. I try to have lore accurate reasons for these changes, right? Like the Night Elf being a goddess worshipper. It just falls in line with the lore of the dungeon. So yeah, that was my highlight of Blackfathom Deeps. I tried to make it quite a bit different than what they did in Season of Discovery. I didn't want to just, list off things that they had already done. This whole thing is because I want things to seem different and new. So I hope you liked it. Comment below what you'd like to see changed in Blackfathom Deeps. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down, and comment why you didn't like the video, because I want to improve these videos to make the best content for you. So yeah, thanks for coming to the video, and I'll see you in the next one. You look good today. See you later.